Welcome back to the Crossroad Diner, that place where your spirit goes when it might be time to change direction. Hey everybody, this is Steve McCurdy, your host at the Crossroad Diner. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you would, give some consideration to subscribing to this channel. It helps us get the word out to more people who might be at that crossroad where they're trying to decide if where they're going is working for them, if they need to change direction and find themselves. And today's guest is a guy who helps at the front end of that here in Valdosta, Georgia, in Lowndes County. JasonVannus, welcome to the Crossroad Diner.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Now, your title is longer than my block. So we can't put that on a tombstone for you. But basically what Jason does is he works with students and helping find places to work while they're in school and get a sense of whether that's, for them or not. So he certainly works with people who are at their own Crossroad Diner. And he came to his very interestingly. Talk about that picture of the baseball player over your shoulder.
Yeah. So in college, I played baseball, and that was my only career aspiration, was to play professional baseball. I hadn't really come to grips or grasp with the minute percentage of people who play collegiately who get the chance to go play college. So I actually started out as a psychology major, and I was meeting with my psychology professor one day, and he was telling me basically, why do you want to do this? And I didn't have an answer. And he pushed me, said, no, why do you want to do this? And embarrassingly enough, Steve, my answer was, well, I saw a movie, and I kind of became interested in the character from that movie. And that was my only interest. My only answer was that.
What was
I didn't
the
know
movie?
at the time I really did have Hannibal Lecter and Silence of the Lambs. I was infatuated with how smart he was,
right? How
intelligent he was, how articulate he was, the way he interacted. I didn't tell him that the person I was interested in was also a serial killer. But I really was interested in that, and I didn't know why. I couldn't quantify it or qualify it at the time. But looking back on it, I know now I want to be involved in guidance and counseling and shaping people's, future. But anyway, he didn't tell me, and so long, and it kind of has a sad turn. He was trying to tell me, Jason, I don't know if you want to do this. Mm-hmm. And he was in a second career, a practicing a clinical psychiatrist, and he kept telling me, I don't want you. And as an athlete, I took it as a challenge. I was like, oh man, you're telling me I'm not good enough for your program. So I left for the summer, came back, and he had taken his own life. And I realized, man, maybe he wasn't trying to weed me out. Maybe he was just trying to say, look, you're basing your career choice on a really frivolous notion of a character of a movie who also happens to be a villain. And so then I went to my athletic advisor, and he said, hey, have you ever thought about being in education? You can still counsel and coach, and you can still be involved in mentoring people, but you can also coach when your playing days are over. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, sign me up. So again, I wish I had a better genesis to my career.
No.
But that's how I got into education.
Let me interrupt you. Let me jump in here. So you had an identity as an athlete, and you did not explore other identities or other interests.
I did not,
because that was what you're going to do. And I was
good, and no one pushed me in the other direction.
Right. But then,
except him.
Then you had a physical challenge that terminated the professional option, right?
Yeah. So that took place after I had switched my major from psychology to education. I was an education major, right? But I was still focused on playing professional athletics. And then 3 surgeries later, a broken wrist and, hip, all my athletic options for professionally had dwindled. And I found myself student teaching and preparing to have a classroom of my own. And I was like, oh my gosh, have I wasted my free education? I could have been anything else, but now I'm a teacher.
Right.
The Lord put me where he wanted me to be, and he's gifted me to be an agent of change for students, or even not an agent of change, an agent of either change or an agent of facilitation in what they finding out what they want to do for a career. And I'm very happy. Again, I wish it was a little sexier. Hey, I always want to be a teacher and change people's lives. I didn't. I just wanted to coach, but that's what got me into the career. But now I don't even coach anymore, Steve. I am
Well,
I am
I would
passionate.
argue with that.
Well, athletically, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
I would argue that you're a life coach in a big way to folks who are, they're at that first major recognizable place where they go, okay, I've been on a support program up until now, but I'm about to become an adult. I need to be responsible for myself.
Yeah.
My parents have tried, I've got to move out of Maslow's hierarchy of need. I got to move off of survival and socialization and those things. I got to move into a career in contributing, and I want to live indoors and eat well, and have good clothes on
Be
my
able to pay my
back.
bills.
So,
Yeah.
right, I want to be able to do all those things, which I haven't had to think about before. How do I want to go about that? And what you are doing is helping them think about that above the survival level and more at the figure out, who am I? What are my gifts? What am I here to do? Kind of
Yeah.
play. Is that
Exactly.
accurate?
Yeah. And a lot of that pairs with, for your audience who may not know exactly how education works in Georgia, every student majors in academics. Okay. Every student majors as an academic student, but they minor in another area. Most of them are going to minor in what's called CTAE, Career Technical Ag Education.
Okay.
Alphabet soup. I know. I'm sorry. It's just how education works. So those are what you and I, when we were in school, we would call vocational areas: automotive, welding, construction, healthcare, business, drafting, architecture, that kind of stuff. That's a minor for them. They have to have 3 consecutive classes in that area. Some students will do foreign language, some will do fine arts. But my job is to take students who are studying in those CTAE areas, career technical ag education, and to place them in the industry based on that. So if they're in welding, my job is to take that student and to help facilitate an apprenticeship in a fabrication facility. If they're in healthcare, my job is to help place them in a healthcare industry. So that placement in the real world actually facilitates what they're learning in the classroom lab, and the students are released from school to go do those. So like when they're in my class, they're actually out in industry working in the job, working a job.
Right. And so they're not only learning the skill, they're learning that environmental dynamic and the relational dynamic. Very important stuff that, if you get out of college not having worked in your own field or the field that you're wanting to pursue in some way, you're landing ice cold, and you don't really know what to expect or who you are in that environment. That's very powerful. Now,
and I would even say before college, one thing my program is good for is letting students explore their career interest before they spend 4 years in college accruing student loan debt. That's another. This is also not just a program that facilitates kids who know what they want to do. This also has an exploration component to, I think I may want to be an accountant. I have a background in finance, and then I put them in and say, oh gosh, I don't want to do tax season for the rest of my career. That's a win for me. If I can put a kid in an environment and they say that's not for me, to me that's a win, because now they haven't wasted 4 years of education and accrued student loan debt for a degree they don't want to use.
Right. And there are more and more examples of that than you and I each know personally.
Yeah.
And the pressure there is, my parents or myself, there's a lot of inertia because I've invested so much in this path.
Yes.
I owe it to others and myself to give this a shot and get a chance to pay for itself, which is really not the best motive in the world for deciding a career arc.
Correct.
How do you guys determine initially? I mean, certainly some people have preferences, but before the call, we were talking about some kids don't have a clue. How do you ferret through that? How do you, and this is for the folks that are listening right now who are, maybe they've been in a career for a while and they're at a place where they're really good at it, man, making money, everything's fine. Your parents are going, shut up, keep your head down. You're doing great.
Yeah.
But they're going, but it's not really me.
I mean, that's such an articulate way of putting that, Steve. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you want to do it for the rest of your life. And I talk to people, friends of mine who are in the military, and as they get promoted, they're getting pushed into this area, and everybody's like, "Oh, you'd be so good at this," and they're like, "Yeah, I may be good at it, but that's not what I want to do. I
Right.
want to do X or Y or Z." And so my program is elective, not selective. Or excuse me, it's selective, not elective. A student can't just enroll in my program; they have to apply, and I vet their
Uh,
attendance, I vet their discipline, because I can't really release a student, because again, when they're in my class, I release them from school, right? So I
got it.
can't release a student if they don't have a background and a history of being able to behave themselves properly. And then I go through and I look at their transcripts and see what classes they've taken, and then I have a conversation with that student and say, where are you working? And I may have an automotive student who is working at, let's say, J.C. Penney's, and that's not a really good alignment for me. But sometimes that student is just helping their parents pay the bills.
Yeah.
And so I'll allow them to keep that job, Steve, while I look for a job that better aligns with their pathway,
But
which
also
is
meets the income
automotive.
requirements
Exactly.
that their contribution to
Exactly.
the family.
So that's kind of how we vet students. And I'm always looking to get a student a job that is aligned with not just their pathway, but
Hmm.
their career interests. So if you think of it as like a little triangle, we have their pathway, we have their job, and then we have their career goal at the top. And when all three of those line up, I've done my job. That student is in a position to succeed, so that when they do come to that crossroads, the crossroads diner, when they come there, they have not just the interest, but also the aptitude and also the skill set development to say, this is what I want to do, and pursue the road that best fits them.
That you make a really really interesting point. There is, you know, one of the things in the Crossroad Diner that I try to emphasize. The Crossroad Diner was originally a musical, and the people that were in there were at a decision point, having to make a turn. But the thing about it is that when you get to that place in life, you can feel very lonely. And so
Yeah.
in your school's case, they got you. They can visit with you, level with you. They've got someone to vet and get that stuff out with. And later in life, we use our friends who may not have that kind of skill and may have fears that reinforce the stay where you are thing rather
Yeah.
than explore who you might be.
Mm-hmm.
And so you give them an opportunity to learn early in the game that exploring an idea is not being disloyal to the
Correct.
identity that's being put upon you by circumstance.
Yes.
Um,
And and we have that conversation with parents, Steve, all the time. Is
how does that
especially when
go?
I have a passion. I have a passion for skilled trades, right? Because what you see is you've seen in the past 2 decades, every student gets pushed to academia. And look, I'm a career academic. I'm about to have a terminal degree. I love academia, but it's not for everybody. But you have everything pushing a student to academia. The high school academics, college, and they've been told their whole life, you can't be successful if you don't go to college, which is not true.
I agree.
I have students just two years ago who graduated, who I put in a commercial electrical construction field, Steve, who are already making more money than me. And I have almost, I haven't quite got the PhD yet, but I'm close to having a terminal degree. And I have a student who's never gone to college, who's making as much money as I make. And so
Right.
you tell me again, you can't be successful without going to college. So I love at least exploring that. But the conversation with the parents typically starts with, well, not my baby. My baby is going to be a lawyer or a doctor. And my response to that, Steve, is this. If I'm sick, I'm going to call a doctor immediately. You got me there. If I'm in trouble, I'm going to call my lawyer immediately. You got me there. But if it's my accountant, my banker, if there's something happens at 3:30 on a Friday afternoon, I'm going to wait to Monday to call my accountant, my banker, those people, right? But
Right.
Steve, you know who I'm not waiting to call at 3:30 in the afternoon if something happens? My plumber or my HVAC person.
That's
Because I'm
right.
not going to sweat in my house all weekend. And you know what else I'm not doing, Steve? I'm also not asking them I'm not saying how much is it going to cost. I'm
Right.
saying my AC broke. Please, 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 please come fix it and just send me the bill. I'm not
Yeah.
negotiating. I'm not haggling. So when we put our kids in the position to go into the skilled trades, we're equipping them with that type of financial leverage.
Right.
Where if someone wants to haggle, you say, hey, you know what? I'll get to you. I'll put you at the bottom of the list. In 3 weeks, I'll call you back when I'm available.
Right.
It's so it's it, and you realize it can go to that type of financial security with accruing no student loan debt, and accomplishing the majority of their college classes while they're in high school through dual enrollment with amazing programs like we have here in Valdosta, Wiregrass Technical College.
Yep.
Those students can dual enroll while they do my program. So they're working at a job while they're earning college credit. The students can graduate at 18 and they've already got the majority of all their classes they need, already the credentials they need, and they've already got the job they need. They just roll over into full-time employment. Like that's
And they also have the
best win for
ability.
me.
They also have the ability to transplant to probably any spot on the planet and get a job doing
Yes.
that thing.
Yes. Yes.
And
And we certainly welcome that student to do that. But one component of my job is the aspect of talent retention, being able to retain talent locally.
yeah.
So here's a question I'll ask you, because you've been in business before. What other company would survive investing in an asset for 12 years only to let it walk when it becomes profitable, right? It wouldn't happen. But we do that in education a lot, Steve.
Yeah.
We invest in a student K through 12, and there's no effort to retain that student's talent. We have invested, we've developed, we've cultivated through teacher salaries, through grants, through equipment, through buses, fuel, food, everything that goes into putting on a school.
Right.
And that student has been taught and trained and mentored and developed by our community. And then there's no effort to retain that student. That we just let them walk to Atlanta. And that's if Atlanta's the best fit for that student, I 100% support that. But our smaller communities, especially our rural communities, have to have a better talent retention model to at least give those students an opportunity to stay locally and work. Because, I mean, we all know that what the numbers say. I mean, it's tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars when a new family moves into a rural area for that community.
Yeah.
And so that's what we need to do. Economic development, talent retention. That's another component of what my program does.
Well, and the way that you and I met was on one of these programs. I was teaching film production in Quitman, which is a very small town near here, where the film industry is starting to be built. And the way that we're selling that to the community is they don't have to go away. They can stay here and be employed, and we're going to give them those skills. And the other flip side of that is that industry can come to this part of Georgia because there is crew who knows what they're doing here.
Yep, and it builds this part of the community.
Yeah, the point that I was making earlier about taking a skill anywhere is that a skilled person in an in-demand industry has got a security that they have the freedom to stay.
Yep.
And they have the freedom to go if they want to. If they want to, I want to do a year in California and see what that's like, they can pick up a job there because they've got the skill and they've got the experience. So it's the best of all worlds. I mean, that's my parental sale for.
Yes.
I
love it. When a kid has options, when they have options, they win.
Yeah. I had a discussion.
The student can do what's best for them. Absolutely.
I had a logic discussion when I was in high school, and the professor from the college who was teaching us said the person who can think of one more option is the one that's always going to win. And that's in a debate, in a discussion, in a looking problem solving. The person with one more option. And we had this teacher. I've told this story on this podcast many times. And the way that he would encourage is he would say, "Look, you've got a very good mind. And everything that you need is around you all the time, but you've got to learn how to ask the better question to have that person or that resource become visible to you. Because it's there. You just aren't seeing it because you're not using those kind of eyes and that kind of question." I think it's phenomenal that the school system has realized on behalf of the kids and the community and their mission, their charter, that equipping young people for a successful life is broader than reading, writing, arithmetic.
Yep.
And has
100%.
committed resources to you. Now, what percentage of your student population avails themselves of this opportunity?
Great question. So now Valdosta has two high schools. I work at Lowndes High School. That's the county school system. We're the third largest high school in Georgia. So it's like steering a small cruise ship every day, Steve.
Yep.
It's 3,200 kids, 3,300 kids. It's big. And we did the math just last semester because now we're in the block, and I don't want to get too nuanced, but basically I have two groups of students. The block the first semester is always smaller than the second semester because second semester students have more options. They got more classes under their belt. Last year I was 162 students first semester, and then second semester about 248, 250 students. So basically, when you combine those and look for students who repeat, long story short, I'm anywhere from 10 to 15% of my of available students. Now, if you do the math in your head, you're saying, Jason, that doesn't math very well. Well, freshmen aren't allowed to be in my program because you have to be 16 and drive. So when you remove freshmen, about 15% of available students participate in my program.
Outstanding. And how do they learn about it?
That's sir.
How do they learn about it?
Oh, I'm relentless. I'm a relentless promoter. But it's a very valid question. So I do things a little bit different than most people in my field. It's one of the things I travel and teach and present and consult on when people try to build this program. It's what my dissertation is on, is how to build a work-based learning program. I'm real big in recruiting industry first. And what I mean by that is if I sit in my office and let students knock on my door, then I'm only doing a one-off. I'm finding one employer for one student. But when I go out, let's just say where you and I met, and I was in, over there looking at, the film academy and what's happening there and where I can possibly find places for my students. Once I get that industry on board and that employer on board, now I'll go back to the school and I'll go into that class and say, hey, look, I've got an employer who needs 3 apprentices. Who's interested? And then 10 kids apply. I vet those 10 kids for the best 5. I send those 5 to the industry and let the industry interview them. So that's to me the best way to see organic growth, in that students who know about my program are already knocking on my door. But when I recruit industry first and then go into the classroom and talk to students who may not know about my program or who may know and may think it's not a good fit, now I'm going in that classroom saying, I have an employer who wants to hire you. Here's what they're offering. Are you interested? Now that student's interest really translates better to exposure. They haven't really been exposed to what our program can do for them. And once I kind of tear that wall down and they see that the program's a good fit, then they enroll. My program's grown by 1 student or 2 or 3 or 4, however many respond. But more importantly, I've taken that talent and I've given our local industry access to that talent. And again, here's a really important part, Steve, before their competitors. Most competitors are looking to hire students when they graduate high school and enroll in post-secondary school, or worse, graduate. Mm-hmm. So let's just say in an industry where most people are looking to hire college graduates, letting me put a 16 or 17-year-old intern with you, you're getting a 6-year advantage and head start on your competitors. And you don't have to untrain the students of any bad behavior. So you get access to them early. You have the ability to retain them. And once we start doing that consistently, now we've developed, which is my golden cow, my what I call a talent pipeline.
Yeah.
Access to talent early and retention of that talent creates a talent pipeline. So now that employer comes back to me every year and says, hey, look, we had 2 graduate. We need 2 more to replace them. Sure. And I know they're on board every single year. So that's how I do that. But I'm also, I go on radio. I do shows like this. I just want people to know that my program exists. And it's not just in Lowndes County. It's all across Georgia. Georgia has one of, if not the best work-based learning programs in the country. And so if they're in Georgia listening to this, like, their high school has a program. Right. It may be run a little bit different, but what we've just explained in dialogue is how the program should work.
So are your students, are your participants, do they become a marketing department? Do they talk the thing up among their friends?
Yes. And that's you're reading my mind. So when I first put a student with a company, mm-hmm. I tell the company, I'm really picky when I start a relationship. I want to give you the best student possible so you're on board. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is that student, so let's just give you an example, an automotive student who wants to do and work as a mechanic or in the automotive industry. When they enroll in the automotive class and I put that student in the automotive industry working, that student has a good experience. And so guess what that student does with all their friends? They tell their buddies, hey, if you want to work in automotive industry, enroll in the automotive class. Mr. VannUs will get you a job in the automotive industry. And because the student will be the one saying this, but they'll say, look, I'm making $15, $20 an hour. I'm getting released from school early to go work, to make money, to polish, refine, and sharpen my skill set. And most of those students already have full-time job offers before they graduate high school.
Yeah.
And so, again, the talent retention aspect, but yes, you're right. Once the student has a positive experience, they become a walking, talking marketing force, a billboard, if you will, for the program, because they're doing what they want to do.
This is excellent stuff, and it's kind of a hybrid of the Crossroad Diner. A lot of my listeners have been in the workforce for a while, and they've come to that place where they've made the discovery later than you're talking about. They didn't have their hand held. They didn't experiment. They had an idea. I think I'm this, and I'm going to commit to it, and I'm going to, as you say, go in debt to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
But the point is, there are also folks who need what you are doing and teaching where they are.
Mm-hmm.
How can they get in touch with you, and what services can you offer them? I know you got a full-time job at the school, but you also do a lot of consulting.
I do a lot of consulting. So if people are saying, hey, look, we want to start this in our state, at our school, or refine our school's program, they can email me. I mean, my email is just as long as my job title. So
it's gonna. Well, we're going to put your text stuff in the notes so people can.
100%.
So
okay.
We don't have to play the listen and write thing.
But they can just Google my name, Jason Vannus. If they Google that, it'll pull up my website. They can get a hold of me that way.
Oh, okay.
A buddy of mine and I have a little podcast that we're just starting called the 2152 Project. We're both work-based learning coordinators, and he's in Utah. I'm here, so our offices are 2,152 miles apart. That's where we get the name 2152 Project.
Right.
And we're basically trying to crowdsource professional development for people in our field, because it's so relatively new and nuanced. So they're welcome to go there, follow that if they want, but. I mean, if they just look me up, Google me, any contact information that we put in the description of this episode. I love helping. I love being able to help facilitate and build programs.
I picked up on that the day we met. I mean, we hit it off immediately with we had to stop so that we could keep doing what we needed to do. But Jason Van Nuss, VAN, new word, Nuss, NUS, Jason Van Nuss. Google that, you'll come across him. You're trying to do the crowdsourcing for the 32, what is it? 3,000?
2152. The 2152 Project. Yeah. 2,152 miles apart.
I got one I can talk to you about.
Okay.
We can maybe do some things on our websites. We're developing the 12 Million Missions Project. And what people have discovered is that if 3% of a population gets passionate about an idea and active, it's enough of a rudder to start turning the ship. 3% of America is about 12 million. And what we want to do is the kind of thing you're doing, where you love your work, you have respect for people and opinions that are different from yours, and you learn that you can provide your service to anybody, even people you disagree with, and respect them. And then we get back to being a culture that is different, and that's okay. So we're going to market your 2000s and my 12 million, and we'll tie them together some kind of a way.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on the show today, man. These are great ideas.
And glad to have it. Glad to be on here.
And any parting wisdom for a person who, like you, was living out an identity, it got stopped, and they have not built any options. And they may be at that place where they think, well, that's all I know myself as. Yeah.
So you gotta, be a lifelong learner. Don't be scared to be a lifelong learner. My identity was baseball athletics, and that shifted when injuries, ended my career. And then I had to, become an educator, I realized I was a born educator. That's what I was gifted to do. So do that. And if they're a professional and they say, hey, you know what? I want similar services in the professional world, contact your local technical college. And there's a thing called WIOA, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And it is money that is geared toward helping professionals switch careers, and it pays, especially to go into like skilled trades and
Right.
in-demand fields. Or let's just say someone has a background in, VHS development, like the old video cassette. Like that's a dead industry, right?
Yeah.
WIOA would help them transition to an in-demand industry by paying their tuition through what's called WIOA funds, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act.
Amazing.
And that's any college, any technical college is going to have access to those type of things. They can apply for scholarships that way. And again, they're welcome to reach out to me and I can help customize a plan for them. I want people to work in an environment where they love to work. My wife picks on me all the time, Steve, because she's like, hey, when's y'all spring break? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, I just show up to work until nobody's there and then I go home. Like, I don't look at the calendar. I don't look at the clock. I just love what I do. And it's almost that, it is work. It's hard, but it's just, you've heard that saying before, if you love what you do, you won't work a day in your life. I don't agree with that. I would just say, if you love what you do, you won't realize it's work. You'll work, but you won't realize it's work because you love doing it. And I want every person to have what I have and to love what they do. And if I can't help, the local technical college through WIOA funds and opportunities could help do that as well. So any way I can help them, have them let me know. You reach out to me. We can do a whole other episode on WIOA if you want to do that. Just let me know.
That might be fun. Jason VannUs, thanks for being with us in the Crossroad Diner. And if you are at a place in your life where you're good, you're making good money, you're doing things that you need to be doing, you're a success at it, but for whatever reason, who it is that you are doesn't have enough room to wiggle to play, give some consideration to these things that Jason's talking about, talking to somebody, and putting yourself in the Crossroad Diner and saying, who am I? Why am I here? What was I put here to do and be? And if you need to shift, have confidence and faith that the path will make itself apparent if you step out looking for it. Until next time, I'm Steve McCurdy for Jason VannUs. This is Crossroad Diner. We'll see you next time. You've been listening to the Crossroad Diner, the place your spirit goes when it might be time to change direction. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We interview people from all walks of life on their big change decisions, and we also have Crossroad coaching sessions with concrete tips for finding your life mission, casting your life vision, and building your next steps plan. See you next time.